Hello, this is Miss Kendall, and I will be continuing our reading in Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. Lullaby. At night, every living thing competes for the chance to be heard. The crickets and frogs call out. Sometimes there's the soft hoo-hoo of a owl lost amid the pines. Even the dogs won't rest until they've howled at the moon. But the crickets always win, long after the frogs stop croaking and the owl has found its way home, long after the dogs have lain down losing the battle against sleep. The crickets keep going, as though they know their song is our lullaby. Bible Times. My grandmother keeps her Bible on a shelf beside her bed. When the day is over, she reads quietly to herself, and in the morning, she'll tell us the stories how Noah listened to God's word, pulled two of each animal inside his ark, waited for the rains to come, and floated safely as the sinners drowned. It's morning now, and we've floated to safely through the Nickeltown night. Our evening prayers, Jehovah, please give us another day, now answered. Biscuits warm and buttered top halfway to our mouths. How much rain did it take to destroy the sinners? What lies did they tell to die such a death? How loud was the rain when it came? How did Noah know that the cobra wouldn't bite, the bull wouldn't charge, and the bee wouldn't sting? Our questions come out fast, and we want the stories more than we want the answers. So when my grandmother says, "Hush, so I can tell it," we do. Jacob's dream of a ladder to heaven, and Jesus with the children surrounding him, Moses on the mountain, fire burning words into stone. Even Salome intrigues us, her wish for a man's head on a platter. Who would want this and live to tell the story of that wanting? Autumn is coming. Outside, there's the sound of wind through the pine trees. But inside, there are stories. There are biscuits and grits and eggs, the fire in the pot-bellied stove already filling the house with warmth. Still, we shiver at the thought of evil Salome. Chew our biscuits slowly. We are safe here, miles and years away from Bible times. The Reader. When we can't find my sister, we know she's under the kitchen table, a book in her hand, a glass of milk, and a bowl full of peanuts beside her. We know we can call Odella's name out loud, slap the table hard with our hands, dance around it, sing, and she'll be coming around the mountain so many times the song makes us sick, and the circling makes us dizzy, and still, my sister will do nothing more than turn the page. The beginning. I cannot write a word yet, but at 3 I know the letter J. Love the way it curves into a hook, that I carefully top it with a straight hat, and the way my sister has taught me to do. Love the sound of the letter and the promise that one day this will be connected to a full name. My own. That I will be able to write by myself, without my sister's hand over mine, making it do what I cannot yet do. How amazing these words are that slowly come to me, how wonderfully on and on they go. Will the words end, I ask, whenever I remember to? Nope, my sister says, all but 5 years old now, and promising me infinity. Hope. The South doesn't agree with my brother. The heat sandpapers his skin. Don't scratch, my grandmother warns, but he does, and the skin grows raw beneath his fingers. The pollen leaves him puffy-eyed, and his small breaths come quick, have too much sound to them. He moves slow, sickly, now where once he was strong. And when his body isn't betraying him, Ohio does. The memories waking him in the night, the view from my father's shoulders, the wonder of the Nielsen house, and the air so easy to breathe. You can keep yourself, my father had said. Now Hope stays mostly quiet, unless asked to speak, his head bent inside the superhero comic books my grandfather brings home on Fridays. Hope searches for himself inside their pages, leaves them dog-eared by Monday morning. The South, his mortal enemy. The South, his kryptonite. The Almost Friends. There's the boy up the road with the hole in his heart. Some afternoons he comes to sit in our yard and listen to our stories. Our Aunt Kay, we tell him, lives in New York City, and maybe we will too someday. And yes, it's true. Once we lived in Ohio, that's why we speak the way we do, and we don't ask about the hole in his heart. Our grandmother warns us, we know better than that. There's Cora and her sisters across the road. One word in my grandmother's mouth, you stay away from Cora and her sisters. Her mother left the family, ran off with the church pastor. Cora and her sisters sometimes sit watching us. And we watch them back, not asking what it feels like not to have a mother, because our grandmother warns us, we know better than that. There are 3 boys who live down the road. We know this only because our grandmother tells us. They live inside their dark house all summer, coming out in the evening when their mother returns home from work, long after we've bathed and slipped into our summer pajamas, books curled into our arms. These are our almost friends, the people we think about when we're tired of playing with each other. But our grandmother says, 3 is plenty. 3 is a team. Find something to do together. And so, over and over again, we do, even though we want to ask her, why can't we play with them? We don't. We know better than that. The right way to speak. The first time my brother says, ain't, my mother pulls a branch from the willow tree growing down the hill at the edge of our backyard. As she slips her closed hand over it, removing the leaves, my brother starts to cry because the branch is a switch now. No longer beautifully sweeping at the bottom of the hill, it whirls as my mother whips it through the air and down against my brother's legs. You will never, my mother says, say ain't in this house. You will never say ain't anywhere. Each switching is a warning to us. Our words are to remain crisp and clear. We are never to say, huh, ain't, or y'all, get, or gonna. Never, ma'am, just yes, with eyes meeting eyes, enough to show respect. Don't ever ma'am anyone. The word too painful, a memory for my mother of a not so long ago southern subservient days. The days of what not to say goes on and on. You are from the north, my mother says. You know the right way to speak. As the switch raises dark welts on my brother's legs, Dell and I look on, afraid to open our mouths, fearing the South will slip out or into them. The Candy Lady. On Fridays, our grandfather takes us to the Candy Lady's house. Even though our grandmother worries he's going to be the cause of our teeth rotting right out of our heads. But my grandfather just laughs, makes us open our mouths and show the strong, herby teeth we've inherited from his side of the family. The 3 of us stand there, our mouths open wide, strong white teeth inside, and my grandmother has to nod and has to say, they're lucky, before sending us on our way. The Candy Lady's small living room is filled with shelves and shelves of chocolate bars and gumdrops, good and plenty, jujubes, moon pies and Necco wafers, lollipops and long red liquor strings, so much candy that it's hard to choose until my grandfather says, get what you want, but I'm getting myself some ice cream. Then the Candy Lady, who is gray-haired and never smiles, disappears into another room and returns a few minutes later with a waffle cone. Pale yellow lemon chiffon ice cream dripping from it. Outside, even this late in the afternoon, the sun is beating down, and the idea of lemon chiffon ice cream cooling us, even for a few minutes, makes us all start saying at once, "Me too, Daddy! Me too! Daddy! Me too!" The walk home from the Candy Lady's house is a quiet one, except for the sound of melting ice cream being slurped up fast before it slides past our wrists and down our arms and onto the hot, dry road. South Carolina, at war. Because we have a right, my grandfather tells us. We are sitting at his feet, and the story tonight is why people are marching all over the South. To walk and sit and dream wherever we want. First they brought us here, then we worked for free. Then it was 1863, and we were supposed to be free, but we weren't. And that's why people are so mad. And it's true. We can't turn on the radio without hearing about the marching. We can't go downtown Greenville without seeing the teenagers walking into stores sitting where brown people still aren't allowed to sit and getting carried out, their bodies limp, their faces calm. This is the way brown people have to fight. My grandfather says, you can't just put your fist up. You have to insist on something. Gently. Walk toward a thing. Slowly. But be ready to die, my grandfather says, for what is right. Be ready to die, my grandfather says, for everything you believe in. And none of us can imagine death, but we try to imagine it anyway. Even my mother joins the fight. When she thinks our grandmother isn't watching, she sneaks out to meet the cousins downtown. But just as she's stepping through the door, in her good dress and gloves on, my grandmother says, "Now don't go getting arrested." My mama sounds like a little girl when she says, "I won't." More than 100 years, my grandfather says, and we're still fighting for the free life we're supposed to be living. So there's a war going on in South Carolina, and even as we play and plant and preach and sleep, we are a part of it. Because you're colored, my grandfather says, and just as good and bright and beautiful and free as anybody. And nobody colored in the South is stopping, my grandfather says, until everybody knows what's true. The training. When my mother's older cousin and best friend Dorothy comes with her children, they run off saying they can't understand the way Hope, Dell, and I speak. "Y'all go too fast," they say, and the words get all pushed together. They say they don't feel like playing with us little kids, so they leave us to walk the streets of Nickeltown when we can't leave the porch. We watch them go, hear Cousin Dorothy say, "Don't you knuckleheads get into trouble out there." Then we stay close to Cousin Dorothy and make believe we're not listening when she knows we are, laughing when she laughs, shaking our heads when she shakes hers. "You know how you have to get those training," she says, and our mother nods. "They won't let you sit at the counters without them. Have to know what to do when those people come at you." She has a small space between her teeth, like my mother's space, and Hope, and Dell's too. She is tall and dark-skinned, beautiful, and broad-shouldered. She wears gloves and dark-colored dresses made for her by a seamstress in Charleston. The trainings take place in the basements of churches and the back rooms of stores, on long car trips and anywhere else people can gather. They learn how to change the South without violence, and how not to be moved by the evil actions of others, how to walk slowly but with deliberate steps, how to sit at counters and be cursed at without cursing back, have food and drinks poured over them without standing up and hurting someone. Even the teenagers get trained to sit tall, not cry, and swallow back fear. But Lord, Cousin Dorothy says, everybody has a line. When I'm walking up to that lunch counter and taking my seat, I pray to God, don't let somebody spit on me. I can be sweet Dorothy 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, as long as nobody crosses that line. Because if they do, this non-violent movement is over. The blanket. The first time my mother goes to New York City, it is only for a long weekend visit. Her kiss on our cheeks, as much a promise as the excitement in her eyes. I'll bring something back for each of you. It's Friday night, and the weekend ahead is already calling us to the Candy Lady's house, my hand and Daddy's. He doesn't know how to say no, my grandmother complains, but neither does she. Dresses and socks and ribbons, our hair pressed and curled. She calls my sister and me her baby girls, smiles proudly when women say how pretty we are. So the first time my mother goes to New York City, we don't know how to be sad. The weight of our grandparents' love like a blanket, with us beneath it, safe and warm. Miss Bell and the Marchers. They look like regular people visiting our neighbor Miss Bell. Foil-covered dishes held out in front of them as they arrive, some in pairs, some alone, some just little kids holding their mother's hands. If you didn't know, you'd think it was just an evening gathering, maybe church people heading to Miss Bell's house to talk about God. But when Miss Bell pulls her blinds close, the people fill their dinner plates with food, their glasses with sweet tea, and gather to talk about marching. Even though Miss Bell works for a white lady who said, "I'll fire you in a minute if I ever see you on that line." Miss Bell knows that marching isn't the only thing she can do. She knows that people fighting need full bellies to think and safe places to gather. She knows the white lady isn't the only one who's watching, listening, waiting to end this fight. So she keeps the marchers' glasses filled, adds more cornbread and potato salad to their plates, stands in the kitchen ready to slice lemon pound cake into generous pieces. And in the morning, just before she pulls on her uniform from the closet, she prays, "God, please give me and those people marching another day. Amen." How to Listen, number 2. In the stores downtown, we're always followed around, just because we're brown. Hair night. Saturday night smells of biscuits and burning hair. Supper done, and my grandmother has transformed the kitchen into a beauty shop. Laid across the table is the hot comb, Dixie peach hair grease, horsehair brush, parting stick, and one girl at a time. Jackie first, my sister says, our freshly washed hair damp and spiraling over toweled shoulders and pale cotton nightgowns. She opens her book to the marked page, curls up in a chair pulled close to the wood-burning stove, bowl of peanuts in her lap. The words in her books are so small I have to squint to see the letters. Hans Brinker, or the Silver Skates, The House at Pooh Corner, Swiss Family Robinson, thick books, dog-eared from the handing down from neighbor to neighbor. My sister handles them gently, marks the pages with torn brown pieces of paper bag, wipes her hands before going beyond the hard-bound covers. Read to me, I say, my eyes and scalp already stinging from the tug of the brush through my hair. And while my grandmother sets the hot comb on flame, heats it just enough to pull my tight curls straighter, my sister's voice wafts over the kitchen, past the smell of hair and oil and flame, and settles like a hand on my shoulder, and holds me there. I want silver skates like Hans, a place on a desert island. I've never seen the ocean, but this too I can imagine, blue water pouring over red dirt. As my sister reads, the pictures begin forming as though someone has turned on a television, lowered the sound, pulled it up close. Grainy black and white pictures come slowly at me, deep, infinite, remembered. On a bright December morning long ago, my sister's soft, clear voice opens up the world around me. I lean in, so hungry for it. Hold still now, my grandmother warns. So I sit on my hands to keep my mind off my hurting head and my whole body still. But the rest of me is already leaving. The rest of me is already gone.